So today we're going to be talking about the 2008 movie Disaster Movie, directed by Jason Friedberg and Aaron Seltzer. So let me answer your first question by saying that this is indeed the duo that made Epic Movie, going at it again with their combination of comedy, or what appears to be an attempt at comedy. The difference here, though, is that in my opinion, it actually works a little more. This is not saying the movie is a masterpiece. In fact, it's actually worse in terms of the ratings that it has on IMDb and Rotten Tomatoes, but it's not really saying much because Epic Movie right now has a 2% on Rotten Tomatoes while this one has 1%, which really is just saying that one pile of excrement smells a little less bad than the other one. So take your pick. Here it works though because of a few reasons, and let me tell you some of those main reasons. So the first reason that this works better is that the cast in this movie actually has a lot more fun with what they're doing and what they're given. And in other cases, there are some cast members that are actually from Mad TV that come in and really give this movie a lot more punch, particularly Nicole Parker. Krista Flanagan and Ike Barinholtz are pretty good as well, but Nicole Parker really brings the punch to this one and makes the movie a lot more fun and entertaining, and you get more genuine laughs out of her scenes as opposed to the rest of the characters in the movie. Now, fun fact, this was Kim Kardashian's film debut, and believe it or not, there's actually a reason connected to her that makes this movie better, but it may not be what you think it is at first. So, the big thing about this movie is that it spoofs disaster movies, big shock there with the name and all. But the opening credits actually do a pretty good job in terms of replicating the Armageddon credits that start at the beginning of that movie. And I would say that is a disaster movie. Now, this may seem obvious to state which movies are disaster movies and which ones are not, but this movie is fairly well known for not knowing exactly which movies are disaster movies and which ones are not in terms of what they spoof. And this movie does not limit itself to spoofing just disaster movies. It goes for the pop culture punch. Except in this case, I didn't feel as many of the jokes being dated as I did with the Epic Movie that I saw previously. And I felt a lot more charisma coming from the people that really went into this movie and made it what it is. So, another reason that this movie works for me is, well, it's probably a bit selfish, but Kim Kardashian's character gets killed by an asteroid, and it's just refreshing, and it makes me feel very selfish and mean and cruel for enjoying that. But frankly, Kim Kardashian just pisses me off as a person, and yeah, it's nice to see this happen. But in terms of a more technical reason as to why I like this movie, it really comes down to some of the different characters that they pull off, especially the people that are former Mad TV stars. So Krista Flanagan actually does a pretty good job in being the girl from Juno, or Junie, and in this movie, and also being the Hannah Montana character that gets hit by an asteroid. And it was pretty funny with Hannah Montana's character because she would seem like she was dying at first and then she would come back to life to promote her merchandise, which I thought was worth a laugh. They may have stretched the joke a little bit too long, but I did at least manage to get a chuckle after the first few times that they kept bringing her back. So that was worth the watch. Juno's character was a lot of fun too, even though she was satirized in this for having a lot of clever quips, as this movie quotes so eloquently. This really brought a flavor to the movie that actually felt like it was going places where Epic Movie was not. Now, you may notice I'm comparing this quite a bit to Epic Movie, and for a few reasons I'm doing this because one, it's so often compared to Epic Movie. For two, it's the same people that made that movie. And 3, it has the whole genre of spoofing movies that seem to be quite a wide array in terms of what they're actually spoofing. Some of the jokes don't really work as well. Um, they mock Speed Racer, which is fine, but then they have Michael Jackson hiding in the back of the car with a monkey and a boy, and he's just taking care of his monkeys. Okay, sure. But the thing about this that was just weird was that his face was so white, and well, white face isn't really, talked about that much, but it was just so comically white that you could tell that it wasn't even like just a person, it was obviously someone going in and like dressing up like a clown, which, sometimes you laugh, other times you'd be like, how realistic is this? But then why am I thinking about realism when I'm watching a disaster movie? I would say you definitely, need to set your brain aside for this one if you're going to enjoy it. Now, people may give criticism in terms of setting your brain aside. They want to engage in the movie no matter what. But sometimes you just have dumb fun, and this is what this movie is. It's dumb fun. And I think more of the jokes work in this production than an epic movie. And it's a worthwhile comparison because these two have so many qualities in common with each other. They have characters that are generally bound by no real reason. There are a few reasons set up, but they're not terribly obvious. You don't really know where it's set at all. You have a few clues for different jokes, such as you have a scene set in 10,001 BC, and then Amy Winehouse comes into the picture and pulls a MacBook out of her hair, and then pulls a bottle of quote unquote gasoline from her hair, and you just have to suspend your disbelief on this one. Just say, okay, this game is, it's a game, really. This movie is not going to be realistic. It's going to just play the jokes for the jokes. And if you don't like that kind of movie, then you're probably going to hate this one. And even though I do like this movie quite a bit in terms of its mediocrity, there's definitely some continuity things that don't really make sense. There's a breakdancing scene where you have an obvious person being a dancer, but it's not really made as a punchline. It's supposed to be given off as if the character is actually dancing the entire time. It's not even like pulled for a joke later. There's another instance with the same character where it is a joke and it is pulled, but it's a completely different person than the one that was breakdancing and playing that part. But, that's a minor grievance. Some other things too, in terms of can a pregnant girl really breakdance and slide around on her pregnant stomach? Is that really a thing? Is her baby going to be okay? It's hard to say. But also, if you really care, your life must be good because there are so many more crucial things to worry about than whether or not a character in a spoof movie that's not really known to be that great is gonna be okay. So what's this movie really about? And I know it's taking quite a bit of time to get there, but here's what it's about. So you start off in 10,001 BC, and you see this guy in dreads. Okay, that's a little odd. Running in the wilderness. Hard to say, like a forest, a jungle. It's like a forest with a lot of... It doesn't really matter. In nature. He's running from this animal, and the elephant, whatever, smashes him into a pile of dung, and he says the word shit because it's a pile of shit. Ooh, we're starting on high notes here. And then he's moving forward, and you see someone basically being Ike Barinholtz as I think it's American Gladiators. This one didn't really sit for me because I didn't really watch American Gladiators 2008 when this movie came out. or whatever year this show was really on and thriving. And they have a bit of a fight. There's a referee that comes out for no reason whatsoever. Like I said, things just come and go. Um, and then the fight's over, and then someone with like a Godzilla eye is peeking through the tall plants. And then Amy Winehouse comes out with her saber-toothed teeth. And she's drinking gasoline and pulling out the computer out of her hair, pulling out the crystal skull out of her hair. And then this crystal skull is going to be what moves the story forward. Okay. It was a little funny where she talks about when the world's going to end, and it's going to end on August 29th, 2008. Now, that doesn't seem like it's that funny when you're watching this later, but this was the actual date that the movie came out to theaters. So it was kind of like, the world ends when this movie comes out because it's a piece of shit. It's hard to say. You have to wonder when they feel self-aware and when they genuinely think that they made something great. Sometimes you feel like they do, sometimes you feel like they don't. I think the other thing that sold me on this movie though was that the commentary was given by mostly the actors with a little bit of talk from the directors, which actually made quite a difference because they actually liked the movie much more than actually talked about the different things that went in to making the movie, and they just had a lot of fun, and they even like cheers you at one point. But going back to the storyline, you see Amy Winehouse pull up her Facebook page, which is clearly from 2008 for sure. Then you see that the character in Dreads was actually named Will, and he was having a dream. He has a lot of dreams, and this explains supposedly why all these scenes are so whacked out. He's in bed with his girlfriend Amy, and she's played by Vanessa Manila at the time. She married since then, but she was actually a host on Wipeout for a season, so that's where I knew her from. But anyway, so Flava Flav's in the bed with them, and he's doing his whole thing with his big clock, and all the other ox, and then this guy named JoJo's in there. That one I didn't get. Okay, whatever. I'm gonna move on. And then there's a part where this main character, Will, played by Matt Lanter, looks at his girlfriend Amy and says, "Are you coming to my Sweet 16 party?" And she looks at him in just complete shock and was like, "You're 25." And he goes, "But I never had one." I'm just trying to imagine the 25-year-old throw a Sweet 16 party. Now, of course, this was trying to spoof the MTV show, like the My Super Duper Sweet 16 or whatever the hell it's called. It doesn't really matter anymore. But, you know, for what it's worth, it was still a bit goofy, even if you didn't know what was really going on. And this moves the plot forward to the next point. This movie does have a lot of things of and then this and then that and then bada bada ba. It tries to have a lot of ideas by having only a few. So then you get introduced to the other characters. You have Calvin, played by Gary, quote, G Thang Johnson. And that's not me being rude or anything. That is his name on the official credits of this movie as G Thang. You meet Kim Kardashian, who plays the character Lisa. You have Carmen Electra come in, and that's always fun. You have Krista Flanagan's character come in as Juno. She's got her hamburger phone. She whacks her boyfriend in the face with a guitar. You know, just her everyday normal life. Whatever. She auctioned her baby off to Brangelina. Okay, that was a tad bit funny. The baby looked really fake, but okay, sure. Then you have a lot of movies parodied all at once in this scene. You have No Country for Old Men, talking about heads versus tails. You have the High School Musical has an entire dance sequence. I guess they just want to come in and magically turn the apartment into a basketball court and you have even the fucking basketball hoop, like the ones that you'd see in official stadiums. That's impressive. That's the other thing too. You know, all these jokes are set up, and the sets are okay. Some of them you could tell they had less time than others. Some sets actually look like they spent a lot of care and quality into making them. Other ones they just look like they made in 5 minutes flat. And then the people that are actually playing the actual human characters suddenly turn into some of the people that are doing the whole song and dance, even though you never see them change clothes. Yeah, continuity is not that great in this movie. Um, there's some jokes that land, some that don't. Calvin's character talking about how he's in like Pimp's Balls with Snoop Dogg. I laughed at that. Some of the other jokes were pretty cool. There was quite a bit of obvious setup in terms of we'll be friends forever unless a random disaster hits. Who the hell would say that unless you're writing a movie where a disaster is going to hit in the next 3 minutes? Yeah, this movie isn't that great on a technical stance. But then during one of the movie parodies that they're going for, Calvin like spaces out and has a daydream of Kim Kardashian and Carmen Electra wrestling. That was fun, but I mean, obviously, I think that was less of an actual movie accomplishment and more just me wanting to see Carmen Electra wrestle Kim Kardashian. I'll be honest there. The other thing about that scene that was a little funny was they ended up playing Twister. Just mid cut. That's the thing, you know, if the joke is funny enough, you don't worry about whether or not it's realistic or not. But if you just have a lot of jokes that don't land, you start noticing the sets around you and you start thinking, wow, you tried so hard just to hammer in this joke and it didn't even work. That's a lot of wasted time. Some celebrities get spoofed in this too. You have Dr. Phil that has probably about a minute to a minute and a half of screen time, though his character ends up getting shot in the head by all the bullets that come around, based on Calvin's character. You also have Jessica Simpson, who sings a few lines, and this joke was already a couple years old by the time this movie came out, and is now really old. Though it is fun seeing Nicole Parker reprise her Jessica Simpson parody. Then you also have the wonderful and talented Justin Timberlake. Ugh, but they really didn't get a good guy to really impersonate him, though he had a couple of funny lines talking about how he was around with Cameron Diaz and Britney, and I think it was even Scarlett Johansson too that they mentioned towards the end. But that was more of a subtle mention as opposed to anything broad and majestic. So surprise, surprise, an asteroid hits, and everyone starts getting all loose in chaos. Will and Amy end up breaking up, but then later on, she ends up going to the Museum of Natural History where she works, even though no one else is there. That seems like a very odd choice to make. She supposedly was wanting to check on the artifacts, but it just doesn't make a lot of sense. They have a parody of a dropped phone call, and they have the AT&T bubble at the end of how a dropped call can really fuck up a conversation. Yeah, I'm just amazed at how a few times it just felt like I was watching a commercial. So there's the AT&T one. There was later on a head-on parody. The head-on parody was a little funnier than the AT&T one. I'll give them that. The other thing that happens is that when they come out, Will is obsessed with getting back to Amy and saying that he wants to find her and that he loves her now and that he's gotten over his fear and the world's ending. Um, Kim Kardashian's character is unsure and she ends up getting smashed by the asteroid. Peace. Her character was not very good. It wasn't really acted that well either. I'll give her this. It was her first movie, and it seemed like she was trying a bit. She probably just didn't honestly have that many great lines to really work with. But she had a good wrestling match with Carmen Electra. She did all right with the few lines that she had. She had some funny moments in the commentary. She didn't show up until after like the first batch of credits, and they're still showing some like bloopers and outtakes. And she walks in right then and there, and says, "Sorry, I'm a little late." That's a little funny, but that's not in this movie, so I can't really give her credit in terms of the actual movie. Like if I wasn't watching this on DVD, I would not have heard that exchange and realized that she actually made a joke that worked. But of course, they want to keep the balance in character, and so almost immediately after Kim Kardashian's character gets destroyed by an asteroid, um, the enchanted princess crawls out of a sewer, and this is the longest role that Nicole Parker plays, and it is magnificent. And if I've been ragging on this movie quite a bit, even though I've been talking well about it overall, it's because of Nicole Parker's enchanted character. And where do I begin? Well, it turns out she didn't really even have a lot of scripted lines in this movie. She actually did a lot of improv and ad lib and things of that nature for this film. And on top of that, she just had a lot of jokes that were just so out there. And compared to everyone else playing it safe for the most part, she was so wacky that it was just so enjoyable. Um, she talks about how she's looking for her prince, and then Juno, or Krista Flanagan's character, says, "Oh, I see. So you came from a fairy tale kingdom," and using her witty quips. And then Nicole Parker's character just goes, "No, I just got lost in the sewers." And they look at her like she's nuts because she is, and it is hilarious. So then Calvin says, "Well, what happened?" And then she goes, "Drugs. Lots and lots and lots of mind altering, enchanting drugs." And I don't do it justice. It's a lot better when she does it. Then there's some other lines where it shouldn't be that funny, but I end up laughing anyway. She tries eating um, glass from a bottle of beer, and she gets all bloody. Um, she's walking around and talking about how much pain she's in from her glass slippers. That was a little bloody too, I guess. She was in the Head On parody, and she gets all snarky with the announcer, and they get into snarky and snarkier and snarkier est, and then they have this whole blowout, and then she just makes a really weird joke. It's a little dirtier than some jokes people like to hear, but it was I no longer have a headache, but this yeast infection won't go away, and you're just like, oh god. And then she says, "Sourdough, anyone?" And like pulls out like, what, why would you have that? Why? I think that's one thing about this movie. Like I said before, you have these things that are not realistic to make jokes happen, and sometimes it works and other times it doesn't. And with Nicole Parker's characters that she plays, it tended to work many more times than it did not. Krista Flanagan, when she played Juno especially, she had quite a few quips that were quite entertaining. And her playing Juno was just really the best. This whole pretentious teen that has all these things that are written for her that are clever to be clever. It's fun. You have Gary G. Thang Johnson, not the libertarian candidate running as of this movie. And if no one knows who the hell this is when they're watching this later, we'll see how that goes for him. The political candidate. I don't think this guy has been in any actual movies since then. Not many, anyway. I did hear he has a stand up routine that he's been doing at the time. We'll see if it's really running now. Um, Matt Lanter actually just got into a big, relatively big new TV series. I think it's on NBC. So he's doing all right. I don't think Vanessa has been doing a lot of acting, though. She was on Wipeout for that season. She was pretty good. She was pretty fun. Nicole Parker, Krista Flanagan, Ike Barinholtz. I hope they've been doing well since. They deserve it. They were a lot of fun. Strange enough, the person that did the worst in this movie, like in terms of acting, and that's saying something, is probably one of the biggest names out there right now. You make fun of the Kardashians virtually all the time now, as a society anyway. Um, this movie moves forward, and it's basically going back and forth between the different parodies that they ensue, the different dreams that they have. There's a sequence with the Sex and the City girls. That's all right. I don't know. You could work with it a little more. Juno, or Krista Flanagan's character, has some really funny lines. Or my favorite is the "I'm lactating, moo." I think you just have to watch this movie with a different kind of mindset to really enjoy it. Um, I tried doing that with Epic Movie and I could not enjoy it. This one I could at least laugh at quite a few times and feel like I could go with the moving story. And then any of the scenes that were just really out there and bizarre, or at least dreams, whether or not that's a good idea to explain a scene is a different story. But it was at least explained away, whereas in Epic Movie, they just tried to have you totally go from the chocolate factory to the land of Narnia. Okay, you do that. In terms of the rest of the movie, they keep going on their quest. In the chipmunk scene, they get rabies. They start attacking. They end up killing off Krista Flanagan's character, which is unfortunate. But it rolls on from there. You have the princess doing all of her fun stuff. There's a breakdancing scene that has a lot of lack of continuity. It's alright. Nothing spectacular. It's pretty funny. Um, Nicole Parker reacting to her large shoulder pads. That was probably the best part in that scene. And thinking it was someone else, even though it was just her shoulder pads. Like, it was amusing. From there, they go to the Natural History Museum finally. And Amy, or Vanessa's character, is pinned down by like the one statue that's in this movie. Odd. Um, they get a little weird and think that knocking her unconscious is a good idea so she doesn't feel the pain. Doesn't really make a lot of sense. You're not doing surgery here. Um, anyway, they picked up the statue. They moved it out of her way. They get up. And then the princess and Calvin split up from Amy and Will. Amy pulls out the crystal skull from her you know what down under. Why the hell would you store that there? I cannot think of a good reason you would ever do that. Regardless, that's where it is. And she takes it out, and it even has a sound effect. Fun fact of the day. If I haven't already mentioned this, we're getting close to spoiler time, so then Amy and Will go and take the crystal skull over to the area where it needs to be restored in its original place, while the princess and Calvin try to get out of the museum, and it turns out that they're locked in, and now you see the Night at the Museum renditions. Some characters work, others don't. A mummy ends up chasing Pocahontas, which you don't get to say every day, so that is a little entertaining. Then the two of them go to this area where the Kung Fu Panda comes in, and probably the worst effect to try to match the Kung Fu Panda movie comes in. And this is another example of the kinds of jokes that they made sometimes that just didn't work. And Calvin would say, "Oh, hell no, Kung Fu Panda." You know, just saying the name of the movie isn't going to be the best form of the joke. It acknowledges that you know what you're mocking, but it doesn't mean that you're doing anything creative with it. You're just mentioning it. Other jokes have come about with saying, "It's an inconvenient truth. It's global warming." Or, "Have you seen Memoirs of a Geisha?" Or, "No, we saw Indiana Jones in the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull." There were a few stilted lines like that you just felt, whoever wrote this wasn't that great. Then you had other lines such as what Juno had, "Take a Xanax, Fabio," when some guy walks in and just in his underwear earlier in the movie. Or, "I'm sorry about your girlfriend, Home Skillet," after Kim Kardashian gets killed by the asteroid. But moving forward, the Kung Fu Panda and Calvin fight, and they go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And then he defeats the Kung Fu Panda, and then or so you think. And then he finally gets to kiss the princess, and then it turns out the princess was in drag, but it was actually a tranny. Yes, that's an actual thing in the movie. Don't get mad at me. I'm just a messenger. Don't shoot me. Um, there was no indication that this was ever in the cards. Why is this a thing? I don't get the joke. Is it supposed to be funny? Haha, haha. I was actually rooting for Calvin, so that's probably why I was just confused. But then Kung Fu Panda takes his sword and kills both of them, so it didn't really matter what happened. Okay. Will and Amy get to the area of where the skull needs to be restored, and they finally meet Indiana Jones, who ends up being Will's father. What? And on top of that, Will's father is a little person that's black, even though Will is like this tall, lanky white guy. What? What? And they talk about that, and he goes on and says, "Your mom got around." Then he makes all sorts of crude jokes. Some are funny, some are some aren't funny. Take your pick. Um, this character that is played by Tony Cox, who's been in a ton of movies, and he's always been like the mischievous rapscallion, and he just always has fun with his roles. So it's pretty entertaining watching him play Will's father here, being Indiana Jones. But when he tries to, get his lasso on and try to get some badass thing and put the skull back to where it should be, he gets caught in a ceiling fan, which I don't know why a ceiling fan is in this dungeon area. And then he flies out through like the stained glass thing. Where does he go? Does he just die? Okay. So then Will puts on like the hat and the coat and lassos himself all around, and there's a little bit of a funny part here. So Amy goes, "Why are you doing this? It's just 10 feet away." And he goes and talks about all of his pride and yada yada yada. And I mean, that was a little bit funny. And then he puts the skull up, and then they finally get their big old kiss. And then that's almost the end of the movie, and then they end up marrying. And then the final parody that comes in is the love guru, and the person that's officiating their wedding is acting all weird. It's a very small wedding. And then he gets the person that's playing Mike Myers' role here. He gets punched in the face by Amy because he gets all perverted and whatnot. And I guess I should mention too, Tony Cox's character as Indiana Jones starts looking over Will's girlfriend and starts counting her assets. But I digress. So then the movie ends with a song, which is, in the unrated version of this movie, which I saw, it was the "I'm fucking Matt Damon," and then it goes into this whole diatribe of how everyone is connected through who they've shared beds with and who they slept with and yada yada yada. So some of the characters that they ripped here were Batman, Hellboy, the Hulk, to name a few. You had Iron Man for a hot second. You had most of those people get smashed by cows from the twister that comes in for no real reason. Okay. You have some of these like valley girls. You have some girls in bikinis. They're nice. You have everyone else that gets connected through some different ways. You even had the Kung Fu Panda and Michael Jackson. That was weird. I really couldn't imagine what that was like, and I really don't want to. Um, and then the movie ends, and then you have like your different cast pictures as to what the characters they played. Then you have some bloopers and outtakes that come out towards the end. And even then, I think it's only like 88 minutes with everything added on at the end as well. So how does this movie hold up? Um, some jokes definitely do not hold up. You know, who the hell watches American Gladiators? It hasn't really even been on. Facebook's layout changed. Amy Winehouse has been dead for quite some time now, like at least 5 years. Michael Jackson's been dead for 7. And to be fair, this movie is 8 years old, so it's not like they were making fun of the people and because they're dead. There's other things that happened with them and their other activities that they did. Even like Robin Williams, has been gone for 2 years now. But the night at the museum, I think, was so short you don't really even notice what's going on. Um, some of the characters are all right. The Iron Man one, they actually had a pretty good Iron Man suit. I was impressed. The Hulk one was eh. Hellboy was okay. He made fun of his lobster claw. It made it a little better that they were at least aware of how goofy it was. Um, I would say that this movie, you could watch it. Most people probably wouldn't like it. If you watched Epic Movie before this, you will love this movie in comparison. If you love Carmen Electra or girls wrestling or girls in bikinis, or basically like if you're being catered to by, you know, directors that are obviously guys, you'll probably like this movie. Um, it certainly does not deserve any good awards. I don't know if it deserves Razzies, like it was, at least nominated, if not winning Razzies. Um, Here's a fun fact. I actually saw this movie on a date when I was 16 when this movie came out, but I had such a different opinion of it then because I didn't even know what was going on to think about in terms of just what I had just seen. I was more interested in my date. But moving on from there, I would give this movie a C minus, which in my terms means that it's mediocre but watchable. I would say it's watchable. I'd say some things are kind of what the hell, um, but it holds up way better than Epic Movie does. This was a lot more enjoyable. I did laugh quite a few times, and I laughed even mentioning the jokes now. Nicole Parker's a riot. Krista Flanagan's great. Ike Barinholtz is decent. I liked the character of Calvin. I wish he had done a lot more. Um, Will was okay. He was a little bit cut out like a cardboard, piece. But I at least was rooting for him to do well. Tony Cox was a hoot. It was fun seeing Vanessa and her sass. You could tell in the commentary they really cared about this movie as much as they could anyway. Um, the writer and director seemed to actually let their actors do a lot more. Yeah, I would say this movie, I liked it. I'll probably end up watching it a few more times. I'd say it's worth looking into, but not everyone has the same sense of humor I do, and I recognize that. So you may not like it, but I will say that it probably is worth your time to look into. And so I give this movie a C minus, just under average, but I still like it. In terms of technicalities, continuity is not that great. Editing is eh. The directing, hit or miss. So some of those more technical things weren't that great, but more jokes landed. You know, some were dud still, but more landed. The characters more enjoyable. Even Kim Kardashian's few lines, they were okay. Um, and the rest of the cast was a lot of fun, and I really enjoyed this movie. And it's one of the better ones on the worst list. You know, granted I've only seen two, but there's more to come, and I'm sure it'll be much, much worse than this. So I just need to be prepared. So probably the next one I'm going to do on this list will be Who's Your Caddy? That's going to be interesting. The next one on my quest for the best is probably going to be the movie Seven with Brad Pitt and Morgan Freeman. Some other movie reviews I'm looking to do are Legally Blonde and Just Like Heaven, as well as the movie Click. And I may also look into the movie Halloween. We'll see. So yeah, just watch some of the other videos on this channel. It's a lot of fun to get into, and let me know what you think and what kinds of feedback you have. And yeah, I'm excited about this and moving forward with this. All right, y'all have a great day now. Okay, bye.